From Launch Fishers and Fishers, Indiana, the Jacob Pyle Show presents the Night Talk Sessions. These conversations that you are about to see were originally shown on YouTube between September and October of 2023 when the show was originally titled Night Talk. But with the popularity of the Jacob Pyle Show on YouTube, these episodes are now being shown again in its entirety, from beginning to end, with no edits, cuts, stops, or interruptions. With tonight's guest, singer and poet Luke Austin Daugherty, and the host of our show, Jacob Pyle.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jacob Pyle, and this is Night Talk. Our guest for tonight already knows this, but just for the sake of the viewers watching at home for the first time, for the next 30 minutes, unscripted, in-depth conversations, but with a difference. No shouting, no cussing, nothing but respectful conversations on the show. All topics that we are discussing on the show have been approved by me before the show taping. In preparing for our show tonight, and with Labor Day coming up in a couple weeks, I have came across a poem that my guest has written that was so beautifully written that I want to read it for all of you if you don't mind.
I don't know.
It's called Four Men Eating Indiana Tenderloins. They sit beside one another on chrome stools up at the counter, four men eating Indiana tenderloins. Construction workers all in faded jeans, dirty high-visibility sweatshirts, and shot-in, well-worn work boots. A lunch break at this diner just a stone's throw from their current project diagonal across the street. They rarely speak to one another as they nest their midnight bones in contemplation of a good crisis. The fella on the near end sings an off-pitch line along with the old Clapton song playing overhead through the speakers, then returns to his sandwich chopping. A second makes a crack, the third one chuckles as the fourth takes no notice. The waitress approaches with four tabs in hand. The four workers, nearly perfectly synchronized, lean a bit, then pull their billfolds out to settle up before returning to their trade for the rest of the afternoon. If you're searching for an example of the American dream, that is about as good as it gets. Take it for what you will. Please welcome to Night Talk singer, songwriter, poet, Luke Austin Daugherty. Am I pronouncing your last name right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Yeah. Welcome to the show, sir. Tell us your inspiration for writing that poem, for those who haven't seen it.
That was a real-time poem, and forgive me, you and anyone, my voice is more raspy than normal due to a spirited singing session while I was driving the car yesterday.
Ah, gotcha.
So,
yeah.
A little bit more raspy.
Yeah.
It was Joe Cocker on the radio. So
yeah. I love Joe Cocker.
There's that. Or on Spotify, actually.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite diners, Oasis in Plainfield, on the west side of town. I was just there, sitting in the sacred booth, the back corner booth where you can see everything, and it was right at a lunchtime deal. And on my WordPress blog, I actually have a little picture that I snapped right as I was writing it, and it's, just these four dudes there, and I used to be a laborer and a driver, so, I know what it's like to be chomping it down, already have 5, 6, whatever, 10 hours of work, then have however much more,
Yeah.
Not really being in the most chatty mood with your bros, because you get to rap with them all day long, so.
Yeah. I used to work at a McDonald's, and I was actually the person that would go, like during the lunch breaks and stuff, that would clean the lobby area. And I think it's so interesting, and especially after I read your poem, it was so interesting to see how many people in the workforce, like just for 1 hour every day, would come, sit, talk to friends, enjoy their lunch together. And I think it was it reminded me so much of the days when I used to work at McDonald's.
Yeah, that's a good place to be a student of humanity, as you are, to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So tell us, how did you get your start in music?
Well, music, oddly enough, just a week or two ago, I was out at the Grand Canyon. The North and the South Rim, but when I was 18 years old, I had gone to college part-time for a semester, was working full-time, and heard about an opportunity to work at the South Rim, the Grand Canyon. And I loved the Grand Canyon, though I'd only been there once. And so I got hired at a job fair at the old airport. And about 3 weeks later, I was out there, and there was a dude named Tom, who was a bartender at the lodge where I worked as busboy. And he played guitar, and he was really one of the first people I knew relatively closely who, played and was happy to show me some chords. So that's where I picked up guitar, bought a guitar in Flagstaff, Arizona, got my first tattoo while I was out there. And over the next, I would say, year and a half, got to where I was, I picked up bass proficiently, kind of in the middle. But as soon as I could play guitar well enough to write songs, I started writing songs when I was about 19. And then played with a band or two, kind of casually for years. Years ago, played in church. And then when I was 26, I think, almost 20 years ago, I started playing out professionally as a solo singer-songwriter.
All right.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Now, on my question sheet, it says, tell us about your recent album, but I see that you actually brought a couple books with you that you wanted to promote.
Oh, sure.
Tell us about those.
So to answer your album question, the most recent album is one called Half-Life.
Okay.
And that one's on Spotify and a few other things. I think since I've been publishing for almost 20 years, a lot of my early catalog is not on some of these formats. You may be able to find an old album around somewhere, or CD, but yeah, that's the last album. The most recent book that was published last year is Mixed Fruit Jelly and Razor Blades, which is your copy.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I will take it home with me and read it in good health.
Yeah, and then before that, Low Shelf Angels. Shameless promotion. Look at us holding these. And those are both on Amazon and a few other things.
Yeah.
And then right now, currently, I'm publishing the next one called the it's just Molkahete, the Tao of Grief. And these are basically chronological as the poems move through my life. So Low Shelf Angels, there were ones previous to that, but just the two I brought. Low Shelf Angels is about 2012 to the middle of 16. Mixed Fruit Jelly picks up somewhere in 16 and goes to right before COVID took off in early 2020. And then the next book, and then the books, pick up there. So the next one to come out, it covers, it's kind of an umbrella book that's all haikus that covers 3 years that are the 2020 to 2023 haiku poems. And then there are a couple of other books in the works that are the non-haiku poems across that time. I write mostly free verse. I do very little format poetry, but since losing one of my sons 3 years ago, for some reason I wrote a lot of haiku since then. Still the minority of what I've written,
Awesome.
but
I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your son.
I appreciate that.
I know the feeling. I lost my mom back in 2016, and she was a wonderful mother to me. I grew up, I grew up around her. She literally was my inspiration for being the guy I am now.
Yeah.
I am today.
So I apologize for you losing your mom, but I'm glad you guys had a strong relationship and good memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to the subject of this show here. What would be your advice for anybody wanting to start in this business?
If specifically being a poet, plan to get famous after you die, and always have something else to do to earn money along with it.
Right.
I say that in jest, but also seriously.
Can I share an example?
Sure.
I'll tell you, I have this production company just as a side job, but I actually do work a full-time night shift job. And, because I know that this is not what's going to pay my bills. Someone told me this the other day, this is not what pays my bills. The full-time job that I have now pays my bills.
Yeah.
So this is pretty much, this is just a chance for on my days off to actually get away, keep myself busy, keep myself active.
Yeah.
And,
it may pay some of your bills.
Right.
Yeah,
and same way with poets. Poems are basically what most of yours are thought based and
yeah. I mean, so I'll very briefly give you a more comprehensive answer to your question than
Right,
jump
go
on
ahead.
that. So if you're going to be, say, a musician, singer-songwriter, you've got time today.
That now means we have to actually take a break right now. I will let you finish your thought there as soon as we come back from break. More with Luke Austin Daugherty. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are back with Luke Austin Daugherty. And you were actually, when we had to take that commercial break, you were finishing a thought. Go ahead and tell us what the thought is.
So I couldn't completely do justice to your question in kind of a short frame, but I'll give the shotgun blast here.
Go ahead.
For a person who wants to be a musician,
Yeah.
definitely be very passion forward, and then I think as a songwriter, or as a person who may or may not be a songwriter, I think choosing, are you going to lean heavy or completely toward cover songs, which is fine if that's what you dig, especially if you're a musician, you don't write lyrics and such, or you could link up with a songwriter and play all originals. But if you have the ability to write songs or a drive to do that and you're good at it, then decide, do I want to be more of an original artist or do I want to be more of a cover artist, with maybe a sprinkling of either or on the other side. So I think that's one of the biggest questions you have to answer first. The business, all that, it comes and goes. I've been doing it almost 20 years professionally. As your life changes, as you go through different seasons of success and tragedy and this and that, there's no way you can plan all that ahead of time like anything else in life. So you have to roll with the punches. But if it's something that you're driven to do and you're passionate about, and this is one thing that interested me about being on your show, is one, I like that there's a human touch there. I like that the timer goes off. I like that it's not too perfect. I like the little intro and all that. It's a very human show. And
yeah. I was just gonna say too, and I told Paul Poteet this when he recorded the thing. Like, do you notice how his voice and the opening music blends so perfectly together?
Yeah.
And I want, and just to answer the question, I wanted the show to be that way because I wanted to kind of set a tone. I don't want people to think that, oh, this is just some other, trash talk show and things like that. That's not what this is. This is a honest conversation type show that people, I think, will enjoy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll say as a little parenthetical, I like a challenge,
Yes.
and I enjoy exercise. And so the fact that this is family friendly and I can't cuss for 30 minutes, that is a challenge. That I'm living up to the challenge.
It's hard.
Yeah.
There's an old saying where I saw on Facebook one day, for every time a person, like, they would have a cuss jar, and every time people would, cuss a word,
Sure.
drop a nickel in the
Yeah,
jar.
be a millionaire.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as far as that's my little short deal. As far as being a musician or whatever. As far as being a poet, or there are lots of different types of writers. But as far as being a poet, I think the worst thing you can do is to try to be a poet. It's very much like, if I take a photograph of you, I am being a photographer. When I show a person, if it's an old-timey, say, photograph that you print off in real, it's a real photograph, picture, and I point at you, that's not you, that's the picture of you. As a photographer, you may even say calling, or my duty, or my passion, whatever, however you want to fill in the blank, is to present the subject as honestly and uniquely as I have the ability to do, from the angle that I see you at, or whatever it might be, in a different way, in a unique way, in my own way. So, as a poet, it's my job, or anyone's job, and I use job in a very loose sense, to capture the thing, whether that's four guys sitting eating tenderloins, whether that is two people arguing, whether that is your own failing in a moment that you're reflecting on. To do it is honestly as uniquely, as interestingly as possible, because you as the writer, you've already lived that moment. So really, once you write it down, once it's in a book or on a blog or whatever, it's for the reader at that point. It's not really for you anymore. Right. So, try to do some justice. And if you make some money along the way as a poet, that's great. But if you don't, if you never make a dime, and you're doing those precursor things as well as you can to the people who read you, whether that's 5 people or 5 million people, and over time that's going to ebb and flow if you do it across your entire life. Mm-hmm. Then it matters, just like with your podcast.
Right.
I think it can be kind of a kitschy thing or a cliche thing when people say, if it's only one person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, right. But we don't desire for it to be only one person. You'd rather it be 100 people than one person. Rather it be 1,000 than 100, right?
Right.
So, but whatever that amount is, if it means something to them, if in the difficult days, the good days, people laugh, it makes them think of something interesting. Like I listened to your dude that was on the technology guy. It's like I learned
Chuck Ridgway.
Yeah, Chuck Ridgway. I'm horrible with names. Sorry, Chuck.
That's okay.
It takes me about 3 touches to remember a name well. But, it was interesting. I learned some stuff. And it's not what I do, it's what he does, So and then I saw you had there's going to be a nurse on.
We had Tina Baxter, who was on last week.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, well, because the thing is we pre-tape the shows.
Mm-hmm. So they're staggered out.
Plenty of advance. Yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
And what are, besides YouTube, are you having it on different formats yet, or services, or?
So basically, the show is just on YouTube right now. My original plan was to do the show at 2 a.m., air the show live at 2 a.m. and have it on 5 nights a week. Mm-hmm. But due to lack of guests, and I'll tell you this quick story, I said it on the first show. We had a guy that, when I told him that we had to keep it family friendly, he was crazy. He went off like crazy. He was like, who are you trying to attract at this time of day? Blah 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 blah. And he kept, and every time I kept, because I had a Craigslist post saying, hey, we need more guests for the show, he kept calling me this awful word that I can't say. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and I just, my advice to you and to all of you out there is, don't let any negative Nancy's get to you. Just as long as you do you, that's what's more important. Yeah. That's sure. The lesson in all this.
Yeah. Well, and in many things, whether it's technology, whether it's this, whether it's a service, whether it's a book or whatever, mm-hmm. there is, I think, something to be said for being the first, being the best, or being different. Mm-hmm. Not as a dogma per se, but 3 categories where you can succeed in anything.
Right.
And I would say, there's a lot of the heavier stuff, there's a lot of that on late night already. So there may be somebody that drives home from work or whatever, and your show may be the oddity.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people, keep in mind, I used to work second shift. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I would do, I would get off, say, about 11 o'clock midnight, and then I would go home, and then the first thing I would turn on was Jimmy Fallon, mm-hmm. or James Corden, or one of those guys, because that was my go-to relaxation piece when I would get home.
Yeah.
It makes you, and I hope that's what this show brings. I want this to be, like I said, a conversational piece. I want this show to be a wonderful, wonderful, relaxing show that people can come home to every night, or if they are working, they can just listen to it while they're working, and it's an easy show to watch.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, we have about 1 minute left. You actually brought something with you. You brought food with you for a reason, and tell us it's a toast, and tell us about. You actually have an Instagram account mm-hmm. with toast. Tell us about that.
Okay, so since we're at 43 seconds, I see it. So this is what is known worldwide by everybody. If one person knows, you can throw a rock at the next person, but don't throw a rock at the people. This is the toast vault, all right?
Okay.
And since we're whittling down toward the next break, this is something that I fashioned, and this won't make sense until after the break, and I'll explain it. So, this toast has been everywhere from Vermont to Utah at this point,
Okay.
to Puerto Rico, and everywhere in between, but it has a hole in it, and that's what makes it different. It's not the first toast, but it's a different toast.
All right, and you'll see what I mean here, because in one moment we will conclude our conversation with Luke Austin Daugherty. Stay with us. Welcome back. We've been talking to Luke Austin Daugherty. I'll get your name right here soon. So now let's talk more about the toast, the whole, and what it means, because we're dying to know at this point what it is.
See, that's an interesting. What does it mean, right?
Yeah.
So, life is full of so many ups and downs, right? How old are you?
I'm in.
If you don't mind me asking.
I'm in my early 30s.
All right. I'm in my middle in 40s at the moment, getting ready to tip the scale towards the other side at 46 later this month. So people are born, people die, right?
Right.
People laugh, people cry. I didn't mean to rhyme that exactly. You have great days. Sometimes, like today, I was driving up. I didn't know it was going to be a torrential downpour and everyone was going to have their hazard lights on. That must be a new thing in Indiana. So, at a very compressed, difficult time in my life, a few years ago, which some things haven't let up and some things have. Across the last 3 years of my life, some of the best days, literally the best days of my entire life, have happened across the last 3 years. Also in that same span of time, definitely the worst days of my entire life have also happened. In the same span of time, right?
Right.
It almost seems like sometimes life plays games. But the good thing is you can play games back. So, I think sometimes in goofy things or lighthearted things, or there's this interesting marriage or handshake of the serious and the light, kind of a yin and yang of purpose.
Right.
And much of that is not going to be prescribed to you. No one's going to tell you what it is. No one's going to give it to you. You kind of have to find it in an absurd kind of way in moments or days or whatever in spans of time in your life. So, a couple of years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and if you're listening along on Instagram, the account for the Toasty McToastertons, is the world through my toast hole. So I have my own. Everything me is Luke Austin Daugherty. Luke Austin Daugherty on this format, that format, whatever. But the toast has its own Instagram, and my wife. My new wife, we got married earlier this year, or I'm sorry, earlier last year. Time's moving fast. We were, at that point, not married yet, and we were in the Adirondacks. My daughter's with us, and we went to this place in New York in the Adirondacks called Key's Pancake House, also a great diner. And these pictures, the inception, the origin story, the instantaneous inspiration, as I've had thousands of 2 eggs and toast with bacon and put my jelly and so forth and dash Tabasco on, this toast came, right? And I noticed that it had this curious little hole, this little air pocket hole in it. So this piece of toast is over 2 years old now.
Okay.
Right? And I just saw the hole and I was like, I've never gotten a piece of toast like this that I can think of. And I picked it up and I looked at it and I was like, it's just kind of weird, it's goofy to look through the hole. And I just took my phone, same phone that I have because I hardly ever get a new phone, and I just snapped a picture of some other people that were there chatting and smiling. And I was like, what if as I'm just going through the rest of this trip, I just take some pictures of stuff through this hole? And as I thought about it, it's kind of like a haiku poem, because a haiku poem, 3 lines, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. You can write about anything but you have to write about it in that tiny space, and that takes a knack to do it well. This is kind of like that. I can photograph anything. I photograph death, life, flowers, mountains, things that would require me to say cuss words that I can't say on the show, happy things, all kinds of stuff through this tiny hole, like this. And I had no idea at the time, 2+ years later, because I keep it in this thing in little silica packets that keep it dry, it's still there. And I'm still taking pictures, you know, and I've met people that, you know, I'm just standing there. One of my favorite pictures, all right? I was at a biker rally, and they're doing all these stunts at Horsepower Inc. here in Indianapolis over on Gasoline Alley. I love going to that thing. And I like to try to do hard things. So catching someone riding a wheelie on a motorcycle through a tiny hole in a piece of toast is difficult. And when you're standing around a bunch of other bikers, you know, you have to be kind of like, I don't care what somebody thinks or they think I'm weird because I'm standing there with toast, right? And there's like 1,000 people around or whatever. And I was able to catch 2 motorcycles fully stood up through this little tiny toast hole. And it just gave me joy. You know, it's just fun. And I captured a great Grand Canyon rainbow, and that's something that's so fleeting. That's been one of my bucket list pictures, is a beautiful rainbow, because it's so fleeting and it's so huge. And here I have this canyon picture where the rainbow is as large as the canyon, but yet I've captured it in this teeny tiny, less than a 1-inch space, you know. So I just had to dodge some rattlesnakes to get out there after a rainstorm, and you know, and it's weird and it's goofy, but it's fun, and so that is the purpose. It's what I chose. You know, somebody else just a piece of toast, they would have hated it.
All right, we are out. We are actually way out of time. Our conversation could go on forever, but our show. But as far as our show is concerned, that is it.
We'd get hungry. We'd have to eat the toast eventually.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But thank you so much for joining us. I had so much fun.
Yeah.
And when I left earlier, I was trying to look for my little autograph book, because we have an autograph book that I have all the guests sign, and I lost it, and I don't know what I did with it, but it is somewhere. So, but
we'll track it down.
But yeah, but I'll tell you what. Instead of signing an autograph book, I'll let you autograph if you have a pen on you.
Yeah,
a copy of your own book.
Yeah.
And then while he's doing that, I'm going to say thank you so much for watching. It's been fun. My guest for tonight has been Luke Austin Daugherty, and I'll be back next week with another guest for you. Till then, for Luke Austin Daugherty, I'm Jacob Pyle. Thank you for watching, and good night, everybody.
If you want to be a guest on The Jacob Pyle Show, or if you'd like a DVD copy of tonight's program, send Jacob an email. His email address is jtpyle1@aol.com. Or if you're ordering a DVD copy of tonight's program, send $10 check or money order to The Jacob Pyle Show, care of Pyle Media Ventures. Post Office Box 154, Noblesville, Indiana 46061. Please include the air date seen on your screen when ordering. Residents outside of Indiana add $5 shipping and handling. Join us next week on The Jacob Pyle Show, where Jacob's guest will be author of Crossroads, Rhonda Parker Taylor. This is Zach Brown speaking for The Jacob Pyle Show, a Pyle Media Ventures presentation. This program has been pre-recorded.